Recently, I've been considering different ways to use the new DMG Rosco Dash. And Louis has a feature film project coming up that he's doing. And we've been discussing it and thought that it was a great project that could suit the Dash. And we wanted to discuss the possible uses for it. So it's probably best that Louis introduces his film, Columba, and gives us a sort of idea of what's going on.
Yeah, sure. Well, so I'm doing this film, which is based on a French novel from the 19th century called Columba, all in French, and it's set on the island where I'm from, Corsica. And so I've decided to sort of tackle that novel, which is now in public domain, and you can adapt however you want. But I've decided to set it today. So it's basically like a modern story of revenge. It's about this young lad who grew up on that small island in Corsica and had a bit of a difficult relationship with his dad and his family. And when he was 18, he left the island, went to mainland France, and studied, became a lawyer. And 10 years later, his sister calls him back and announces to him that dad has died in a hunting accident, and that he has to come back to bury him. And when he comes back, his sister actually tells him that she doesn't believe it was an accident, and that the rival family in the village, she thinks, killed their dad. So this kind of weird thing starts where she says, we need to go and kill them. We need to avenge our dad. And he's obviously, our main character has completely changed. He's a totally different man. He's not abiding by the tradition the tradition of revenge that some people have in Corsica. And the whole film is about her manipulation of him and trying to turn him into a killer, someone who will avenge his family. So the film is obviously a very small budget film. It's quite, I guess it's a small setting. It's very much about characters and the manipulation of characters and trying to set a mood in this small village where I'm from, where we create this claustrophobic, dark environment in which our character is trying to sort of struggle out and survive, but is inextricably led towards revenge. And the specificity of that film is that I've decided to do it sort of mid-pandemic with very few resources, because I'm lucky enough to have a lot of resources in Corsica, which allow me to turn a very modest budget into quite a good looking film, I think. But one of the main things that I need to do because of that is that I need to direct it and DP it, which I'm not used to, and is kind of a bit of a discovery for me. So I've been working, thanks to your advice and a lot of people's advice, I've been trying to work out solutions to shoot a film on my own. And
it's a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were kind enough to point me towards the DMG Rosco Dash as a potential light that I could use, because it's small, it's compact, and a lot of the time I'm going to be on my own or almost on my own, trying to operate the camera, light a scene quickly, get something on its feet, and get an exposure and get something interesting, and then go.
So essentially, you're sort of doing like a one-man band-esque, in terms of the camera and lighting. You need to kind of like fuse the two departments together.
Exactly. First of all, carry a lot of things on my own, but also rig things quickly and get something like just up on its feet fast, and be able to make modifications, as fast as possible, knowing that I've got to, again, operate a camera and talk to an actor and direct a film.
I think the limitation that you've kind of putting on yourself sort of presents an exciting opportunity to kind of be creative within it. I think a lot of people would, a lot of people who maybe used to using kind of like bigger tools or whatever, would find it too restrictive, that you couldn't be creative within that. But I think, by selecting the right tools and the right kind of methodology, then you've got like a lot of opportunity to be creative. It's just about making sure that you're not burdening yourself, I suppose, with too much, or I suppose it's about making this sort of like cohesive unit in terms of your lighting and camera setup, so that it's efficient for you to use.
Yeah, absolutely. And not overloading myself with tools and trying to select the right tools for the job, essentially, considering my skill set, which is, being able to try and create lighting, but at the same time knowing that like I'm not going to be able to handle too much information and too many tools, I guess.
I mean, you want as well, I suppose it's about prioritizing as well. Like we've spoken before, like you want to make sure that you have the ability to like direct, and that it's, you know, we both know what's the most important thing when you've got your order of what's going on in a film, and your performances are key. And, you know, it's making sure that you've got the tools around you so that you can sort of free yourself up to still be able to
Exactly.
have that focus, which has sort of been the majority of the conversations we've had so far, is like keeping that at the forefront, because it's quite easy to get lost in tech and, you know, camera and lighting decisions, and let the performance elements slip away from our mind. I mean, as a DP more so, you know, it's like, it's just like all these sparkly things that you can look at and touch, and I always try and remind myself like it's in service to what's going on in front of the camera, you know. I'm going to show you both the dash, the DMG Rosco Dash, and the accessory, the dot. Now, the sort of headline features of the dash, I actually have it here. There you go. So this is the dash. Awesome. I mean, with this setup, I'm not going to be able to show you like the intricacies of it, but you'll get the gist. So it's, as you can see, it's a pocket LED light, and it's battery powered. The battery's like built into it somewhere. It's exceptionally color accurate. So it's built with true Rosco color, and DMG, which is a French company, which is your motherland. Yeah, it's got DMG mix technology, which is not only in this little light, but it's in like their lights that go up to, you know, big LED panels that are sort of way out the range of what I can afford. It's powerful. It can produce like 500 lumens of output. So for the size of it, it's super powerful. It's only 14 watts. So it's quite impressive. It's definitely 2021. In the kit, you've got the light, obviously, the unit, and then you've got the hard case, which I'll just grab. So it comes in this hard case, which is cool. Not hard case, it's like a kind of soft case with a hard interior.
Okay.
This is like the one light kit. It will also come in 4 lights, which is we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah.
It comes with a USB charging cable, which is like one you'd have for your phone. Then it also comes with a flat diffuser, which has magnets on it. So the dash has magnets on it, and you can just kind of like clip it on, and it's super fast, which is ideal. Similar to that, you've got a dome, which is, sorry about the noise. Same deal. It's like a slightly different diffuser. You can stack them too. So, I mean, you wouldn't want to do this with these two, but you can stack diffusers. So I've got them both together.
Oh, right. Okay. That's great.
Which is handy. And then also you get an egg crate. So same deal. So you could put the flat diffuser on and then the egg crate.
Yeah.
And it's like, there you go. Super fast. Both are on there. So really quick. And then also a gel holder, which in the same vein, if you wanted to kind of put the flat diffuser on or anything else, you can pre-cut gels and put it behind this, and then it clips on. Insert it
in the holder and just
you just trap it between the two essentially. So you just put it straight up flat on there and then clip that on, and it's done. So I mean, if you on your own or you're on a bigger set, like having the speed of this is like it's great, especially if you're like pressed for time and you're just like, oh, I've got this idea really quick, like, you know, you can execute it quickly, which is sort of one of the most exciting parts of this for me. For mounting, you got this light stand mount, which is standard kind of baby pin mount with a 1/4 inch thread on the top.
Screw into it.
Yeah, like it's just to go on like a C-stand flag arm or on the top of a light stand or whatever. Finally, this is also really cool. This is like a magnet mount. So you essentially screw it into the back of the light, like that, and you can just stick it onto anything. Like I've stuck it onto the side of my fridge, anything metal.
Oh wow.
So you know, if you can, I mean, it is frustrating with magnets sometimes where you like think it's going to be magnetic and then it's not. But I've done that a few times. So you want to make sure it definitely sticks before you let go. You know, it's really handy again for like super fast rigging. If you've just got that on the back and you like bang that, you know, stick that up somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because obviously I'm going to be faced with that challenge a lot of the time, having to quickly stick something and make it hold. And obviously, knowing what you just said, not everything is magnetic, but you're always going to have magnetic elements around you. So it opens up the possibilities of not having stands as well, because that's the other problem.
It's a super powerful magnet too. So it'll like take the weight of the light, which is, you know, it's impressive. I wouldn't want to keep it in my pocket next to my phone or like any hard drives.
Yeah. Is the light heavy?
It's got a good weight to it. It's like heavier than your phone. It's made from an aluminium alloy. So if you drop it, it'll take a bit of dropping, you know. I wouldn't advise throwing it against the wall or the floor, but like, you know, you can drop it and it should hold together pretty well. Like they've designed it with that in mind. It's got a broad spectrum white light, so between 1,700 Kelvin to 10,000 Kelvin. DMG's mixing technology has been around for a long time, and that's really quite exciting when it comes to LEDs, like trying to find precision, because as we both well know from our past filmmaking exploits, there's some like terrible LEDs out there and have been. So
okay, fantastic.
There's 130 true Rosco color gels built into it. Rosco have compared them with their gels on actual light sources, and they're giving like a thumbs up to say they're okay. They match as if you're putting a gel on the front of the light.
Do you dial this in?
Basically, on the back of the light or on your phone, I'll get into it in a little bit more specifics, but you can select the gel, and if you know what the gel is from previous experience, you can sort of like, oh, there's the color that I know, and you know that you're getting it. You
can trust the accuracy of that measurement. And
yeah, that's, they've given that sort of thumbs up to it, which is cool. And I think they're going to add more in as time goes on. So that's the good thing about this light. It's like, it's upgradable because it's got firmware that you upgrade from your phone. It's going to keep growing and developing. Like, you know, it's just sort of like the beginning stages of it. And even now, like, this is a test unit, but in the last like couple of months, they've added more stuff to it. You can control it with an app, basically, which I've sort of gone through in another video that I've made previously, but there's this app called My Mix. It has all the options on here. So you've got white mode, gel mode, color mode. So you can select like from a hue, saturation, and intensity. You can select exactly what color you want from that. And then also you've got an XY axis. So it basically, so you've got your color space there, and you can make sure whatever color you're selecting like slips within that. So that if your camera is, you know, if your camera's color space is Rec 709, then you can select a color and make sure that it's going to read well. It's not going to like chroma clip, which we had in Trendy a couple of times too, like some trial and error things. But, you know, make sure it's not like you're not asking it to read color it can't read, you know. So it's a really interesting technology that it's like excites me a lot, like knowing that what I'm seeing is what I'm getting, and I'm not pushing the camera beyond what it's capable of doing.
And on that app, can you animate the can you animate the light in
So I'm on effects mode now. So you've got like emergency vehicle. If I turn it down, it's not. Yeah, you can turn this. The thing is as well, like you've got the option to go from 0.01% up to 99.99%. So it's like super delicate, you know. So I'm like, you can literally call across the set and be like, oh, can you just take that down by like 0.3%? You know? And then, actually, no, put it back, you know, get everyone to change all the lights and then ask them to put them all back again. And there's a source match as well. You've got blue screen, green screen, high power sodium, low power sodium.
Yeah, the sodium will definitely be useful for me.
You've got all these kind of like quick go-to things, which especially if you've rigged your light over there and you've got your phone in your hand, you can quickly, you know, if you can't reach it, or especially if you've gone up a ladder and put it up, you've still got the options without having to climb up the ladder and do it.
That's great.
So you got the light on camera, you can control it from the back, or you've got it near to you. You've got the like all the menu system in this little screen here. So I'll just hold the menu button for 3 seconds. It goes into boost mode, which essentially gives you another 35% extra power.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which it'll drain the battery faster, but if you need that extra push, it'll do it.
You did say that, like, in the case you had this USB and the battery was in the light, but like, so what if any reason you get, you know, you just want that little extra time? Can you plug in anything else? Like, can you sort of sustain the light in one way or another? You can either plug it into the mains using a USB charger, or you can buy an external phone charger, and you can power it from external phone chargers. It should last for about 3 hours at 100% intensity. So, you know, that's pretty good. And then
you know, if you've got these, you get these massive phone chargers you can rig. If you know it in advance, you can sort of pre-design a little thing to power it. But it's, you know, 3 hours is pretty good. And obviously in between using it, you can charge it as you go. You know, I imagine you can charge it in your car if you had like
That's
a
what I was going to
USB.
say, because I guess some people, and probably me as well, will be using it in car scenes in different ways, because it's a small light and it's quite light. And
if you've got splitters, you might be able to charge multiple off one, you know, off one plug socket, or if you've got like my phone, external phone charger's got 2 USB outputs, you might be able to charge 2 at once.
Right.
Like I said, it's hard wearing as well, so it's like aluminium alloy body and shock resistant, and also it's weather resistant, so IP54 rated. And although I'm not an expert in exactly what that means, I think it's like shower proof and stuff. So if you're out in the rain, if the weather changed on you, which although you're in Corsica, so I can imagine it's not likely to, or if it does, it's going to be horrendous.
It can. It's a small island, so it's like, you know, it's like England. It's just, you know, in a second, different weather. But yeah,
true.
Doesn't rain as much, for sure.
No, yeah, it's like probably more extremes in it. If it does rain, then you're just getting like washed away. It's got 1, 2, 3. It's got 3/4-inch threads on it, so you can basically screw your accessories on, screw the magnet onto it.
Super nice.
The USB charging port is on the side, just in there. And then you've got this dial to help you control the menu options. On the back, you've got the power button, the menu button, and a lock button, as well as this helps you cycle through the menu too.
Can you control most of the features through that menu if for any reason you don't have your phone?
Yeah, all of them.
Oh, that's great. So essentially you have the phone option.
Yeah, because if your phone dies, you're not screwed, you know.
Okay. I just wanted to double check that, because obviously, you know, 21st century, as we said, like if you don't have a phone, you don't exist really. But it's good to know that you can still use it through the menu.
Depending on the situation, you'd pick the menu on the back as opposed to your phone. Like it might just be quicker to whack that on if you get used to the way, because the thing is as well, is like a little, you got to get used to using the buttons and stuff. But the minute you do, you'll be able to get there really quickly. And next up is the dot. I didn't show this earlier, but this is the dot. It's sort of like a round diffuser half dome made of silicon. So you can do this.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it won't break. Also, it's handy if you want to like pack it down. You know, you can like squeeze it in. This bit of the back's plastics, you don't want to like break that or put too much pressure on that. But I think it comes away from it, so you can literally like take. I don't want to do it now, but you see, you can take it off. I feel like if I do that whilst we're recording, I'll never be able to get it back on, like classic live behavior. And then it also comes with like a velvet bag to put that in. Obviously, velvet only the best for Louis.
So wait a second. So you screw the light, you can magnet the light to it.
It has this little this little piece of elastic here, and the magnets. So just to extra secure it, you magnet it on like before, and then you put that over it, and then it's just on.
Ooh, that's great.
A lot of people are using this for an eye light. It just feels like a sort of natural shape as well. You know, it's not when that's reflected in the eye, it's not a square or anything too human looking. And I suppose we're used to spheres. I'm like looking at outside as if the moon or the sun are out there, but those are our shapes of choice. You can connect multiple lights with that app.
Okay, so yeah, because you mentioned before about you can have 4 lights. You can have a pack of 4.
Yeah, I'll go on to that in a second. But basically, you can create multiple lights and create groups like the pack of 4. I'm not entirely sure how many you can go up to, but you can connect. I believe it's a lot, but you can connect, like you can get them all and have them all in sync. So you know you can do crazy patterns and things with them. You know, you can create a massive light. I think the possibilities are sort of endless when it comes to that. You just got to use your creative mind, but then obviously it takes a lot of rigging to have more lights and stuff. But again, if you've got multiple of these lights set up in your situation, it would be easier than running from light to light to be able to control them all on your phone. Maybe it's not the case for you on this project, but for me, it's that like there's time where people want to see that you've sort of finished doing what you're doing, you know, and so you've still actually got the option, as you've probably stood around wanting me to finish before. You've got the option to still be messing around and still making tweaks, you know, because sometimes everyone's ready to go and then you get like an extra 30 seconds for some reason. So you can sort of go to your phone and
Then you're gonna have the AD looking at you, going like, "Will, why are you on your phone? Like, stop being on your phone. Stop texting. We're
Yeah,
shooting a film."
I've had that before, and interesting reaction has come from it. As you mentioned, the quad kit, it's got all the same accessories, but there's 4. So that could be really interesting for your project.
Yeah.
You have this thing called the DMG Dash link. I don't have one, but it's essentially like it comes in the kit, and it's essentially like you attach all 4 lights to it so that they become one light.
Right.
Well, they don't actually become one light, but they all sit together, so that if you then sync them in the app, they'll sort of behave like that.
Right.
At least that's how I understand
That's
it.
great. And because I've seen, I think the first time you mentioned the Dash to me, I saw a picture of that quad kit like as a line, but you saying like you can put it in different shapes.
What my understanding was is it creates a rectangle, like 2 above, 2 below. I hope I'm not talking absolute nonsense here. I've only seen it briefly though, so I've said about the eye light, but there's like endless uses to this. As far as I can see, I just thought it might be worth mentioning some to help with your imagination.
I guess, continuing on what I was saying when I talked about the film first, like, I'm going to be in a lot of situations. I'm going to be, I'm going to be using probably a main light that might be a quad kit type situation, or just one of them, or potentially an external light that would be like a big soft box that what will be my main source. But if I can have something that's quicker to rig, to create a hair light, or create an eye light, or just give me a little push on something, or even be a practical in the background.
Yeah.
Because what you showed me with the dot was super interesting, because the shape of it is almost like could pass for a practical in certain situations.
You could definitely get this on like a table in the background quickly and blag it. But I mean, also like the light being small, taking it further back, having it out of focus, you can kind of like play with creating sort of bokeh in the background. You can have them on different colors and just add a little dashes of color in the background. Dash. They can take that one for free. Dashes of color. You could do that, and you've got a little bit of quick creative control on.
Totally. There's a million ways to be creative with that. Like,
people can use it for a small kind of splash of light on the background, like accents. It's obviously it's tiny, so it's like really easy to hide. Again, working quickly. You still could have a small source, but the back of it's like really long, and it could be sticking out behind a sofa or whatever. And this can just be like bang, put it in, nice and quick. Me included, I've used this as to light me in the situation that we're in now for webcam kind of presentations, or sort of desk. YouTubers are going to love this light, like for sure, because it's tiny as well, and it's not going to take up too much desk space. It's good as a practical, like we said, with or without the dot. Product lighting, it's good for. I know these aren't necessarily suitable for your project, but moving forward, if you do invest in this, then there could be things.
Exactly. You want the versatility to, be able to use it on a different project in a different.
Yeah, like I can imagine this still be like going quite strong in a few years as well. So I don't know exactly off the top of my head how much it is, but it's very reasonably priced for what it is.
Well, yeah, and it gives the versatility that you're talking about. Because for my project, even though it's a one-man band, even though there's a lot of things where I'm limiting myself, having the, assurance that like the color accuracy is there, and the temperature accuracy is there. Like I know that I can trust my creative choices. I'm not going to be let down by like, oh, I was convinced this was going to give me sodium vapor, and actually it's a complete,
We've both been in situations together where we've not got what we wanted on set. Like we've not had that reliability in the past. And then you've got a colorist like scrambling around trying to fix stuff, and you're wasting time in the grade trying to deal with problems that lights are creating, as opposed to kind of being creative. And this, especially when you get to that point, using lights like this, you can rely on the color, and you're just saving yourself a headache and giving yourself more creative freedom later. So I'm all for that personally. I mean, it's because it's a small source as well. You can use it for like dramatic hard lighting. I mean, we talked about possibly using it at night, and you can modify it to create a larger source, which, bouncing it off a reflector, bouncing it off anything, you can create larger sources. On the topic of practicals, you can hide it in practical lamps. it's small enough to kind of get away with, as long as you're facing it in the right direction. Or you can use the included accessories, but you can also like belly diffusion over it. You can mimic sources that are already there. If you've got a table lamp in shot, other practicals, and then you come in for a shot of the character in a close-up, you can like bring this in and help push it. You can use it bare or modify it, or use it with the dot. There are many options to kind of like give that push. And again, it's really quick. I'd advise testing it with the practicals that you have on set already and see how you can sort of like achieve that push. And maybe it's a simpler way than using other options.
Yeah.
But you can just quickly add it to a scene, because it's, the magnet, it's lightweight. So it's perfect in that regard.
Yeah. And should we have a look at some of the scenes that we talked about before, where I was thinking perhaps I could use that. So in my film, at some point, there's the exterior of a bar where the main character has just been, and he walks out of it after having had a few drinks with his old friends that you were connected with, and it's night. It's probably like 1 or 2 in the morning. He walks out, he's a bit drunk. Finds himself alone in his tiny village that's completely dead at night. There's not a sound around. He says bye to his friend, and he just takes a second, looks around, appreciates the village. We get a sense of atmosphere instantly, because suddenly this warmth that he had in the bar is gone. He's in the village, full darkness, and he's about to meet one of the antagonists of the story. We don't know that yet, but I guess the goal is to really install that feeling of darkness and mystery. You're on a Mediterranean island. Even though the character knows it, the audience doesn't know it that well, and they can imagine a variety of things. So I know that I'm going to have to shoot that scene super fast, and I'm going to have to build upon what's already in my village, which is sodium vapor lights. Like, it's beautiful lighting. It's old lampposts that are just, that sort of orangey yellow tone that's really lovely. But I'm going to have to sort of build something around this. So should we maybe have a look at the scene? Maybe I can show you a sort of diagram. So I'm going to share my screen. Cool. So okay, so it's kind of hard to imagine, but bear with me. So here we have a road that's kind of going up the village. Right there, that is a wall to the interior of a bar where our characters have been. And this is a terrace. So this is open. So here, that's not a wall. That's actually just a curb.
Yeah.
It's running along the road. So this is open. So the scene starts and we are catching it from this camera angle, which is on the road. By the way, this way we have a lot of depth. We're going down the valley. So like down the road that leads to the village.
Okay.
And behind the camera, the road is going up towards the heart of the village where the church is. So you have this kind of like this mountain right behind us with all these, where you can see the village as a bit of an amphitheater with a lot of different sodium lights that like essentially practicals that are going to be in the frame in a second. But essentially the scene starts with that shot where you see the character from the road saying bye. So also I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. Let me see if that works. Can you see the names appearing a bit clearer?
Yeah.
So Orso is the main character. He says bye to his mate here. Then the mate comes back in, and Orso arrives on the road, stops here, looks around and takes in the space. And then, maybe we hear like an owl in the distance. We just, again, get this sense of place. We see the depth behind him. And then he decides to go up to his house, and we pan with him and let him walk away, right? So, I was trying to think about solutions, and we talked about it, but obviously we have a lamppost here and a lamppost there that are big sort of sodium vapor light that are going to be on that night when I shoot it.
Yeah. And
then I'm thinking of lighting the bar with like 2 lights like that, like probably, 2K sort of like, lights that I'm going to create in the bar and probably animate off when the character comes back in and closes.
Like a glow out of the window.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then for the rest, I was kind of hoping that maybe the dash could come in handy.
Yeah. Well, there's a range of possibilities of where you could use it in this scenario. Like you said about depth. in the background. You could place, you know, I don't know whether you'd consider getting the quad kit or a couple of these, but if you did have more than one, you could place them in the background to, you know, the street beyond what we can see in your drawing. You could place them to light different elements, or place them as practicals in the background out of focus, like say for little bits of bokeh, you know, above, you know, one possible use here is, and even further down the street, is above the characters who are standing outside the door. So above Orso and Pierre, it could be a sort of,
here, for example.
You know, I'm not entirely sure of the nature of the surface, but you could use the magnet or some other way to rig the light above them. You could do it above the windows if there was anyone else around. You know, and with the lampposts, you know, there's the option to push them with the source matching, you know. So you'd want to test how that looks against that, like side by side. You know, there might be something slightly different about the bulbs in those lampposts, but you know, you've got the options with the color to tweak it. So you'll be able to match those sources and push it a little bit. And whether that be, you know, you'd want to accessorize it to make sure that you've got the size being the right source, so it feels like, you know, you're sort of adding to that, and it doesn't feel like you've suddenly added an extra source and it's coming from the same direction. But there's you know, there's a lot of options there.
Yeah, and so for example, like just throwing an idea out there, like something that we talked about last time, if I wanted to push that lamppost and wanted to sort of create something that would feel kind of similar, so maybe, you know, not just direct hard, but like kind of emulating a bigger source, I guess, I could potentially like rig a couple of dashes here and either bounce them off something here, or even have them just directly pointing at the character.
Yeah, the only difficulty there with that is that there's the inverse square law with lighting, and obviously the further light you go back with a light, the larger the area you've got. Like, for example, the sun is millions, I don't know how far away it is exactly off the top of my head, but it's so far away that everywhere on the earth we've pretty much got even light. You know, we're not going into darkness as we step forward. And because of the inverse square law, we've got a large range in which to play before the light falls off. So in this situation, you have to balance where you position those lights so that it's not so close that if he moves, you're instantly like walking out of the light, but that it's, you know, it's far enough back to be able to do that. And one way, like you say, is you can bounce the light depending on the surface. It can either be the case that you bounce the light and it sort of adds distance to the light, so if you're sort of mirroring the light almost, or if you bounce it into a softer kind of a larger source to make like a soft source with diffusion maybe, then that will then become the source, and then, you know, you might have the same problem of not having enough fall off. So you've got to make sure that sort of, you keep that in mind. But if your character's stationary, you might be able to get away with it. You know, if your character, you know, in this situation where you've got those lights, you're going to pan quickly, aren't you? And your character's going to move. So it's almost like testing to see, does he feel like he walks out the light? Is there so much movement that you can kind of get away with it? You know, because with this scenario, like, I'm sure that people watching this, they probably have like a million of different ideas of how to do this sort of thing. But it's trying to also keep in mind that you are alone in this scenario. You know, you might have one assistant or whatever, but you don't have a full film crew and a full film set, and it's like, it's a very different way of thinking about things than when you do. So you know, you want to think, how can I, with my limited kit, make the most out of it, you know? And that's why the Dash is a really good option, because you can gang them together and do something like that, you know, and match a source, which is like, I don't, you know, for the price of 4 of them, which I think is like short of $1,500, it's you're getting some crazy amount of ability to adjust color and match color, and that I don't know of another source that could do that within that price range, like, and it would still be like usable in your scenario where you're like on your own and you can work quick. I think that's the thing. It's like, you know, you can try and imagine this in the Hollywood way, but this actually brings a lot of like big budget features to someone on their own, you know, and that's especially, you know, if you're shooting corporates or something. Like I've shot lots of corporates in the past, and it would be ideal in that scenario. Sorry, I'm slightly diverting there.
No, yeah, sure.
But you know, like we talked as well, like the when with the pan where you see your cameras panning, the bar terrace area, this light behind where the character's going to walk, this light could easily hang in umbrellas, or you know, you can find ways to rig it so that when your character's passing over there, if you've got a bit of a dark spot, you can silhouette them. You know, you can just give a little bit of shape to the silhouette that moves past. You know, I'm a big fan of letting characters move through light and darkness, and it not needing to everything needing to be lit. And you, it's one of your limitations that you're not going to be able to light things on this shoot, not light everything. So it's like we talked before about leaning into your limitations, and it's like this is a perfect example, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Embracing the darkness and creating light in patches rather than being too like, let's evenly lit everything, but be
I mean, it's like I've read your script, and it's there's an air of mystery about it. I'm wanting to find out more constantly, and I think like with your lighting, almost this restriction could become one of your biggest assets in the circumstances of you shooting this on your own, you know?
Yeah, and it's interesting because in this situation, again, like thinking like, you know, there's so many things that are left to decide, but like it would be easy for me to say, you know, rig that light that we talked about above the door where the two characters say goodbye to each other, rig these two to potentially emulate a lamppost, and then rig that, you know, here, like another one here and here on the terrace. That's 4 in the quad kit. And like I've rigged that in probably like, you know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes tops. And
I mean, knowing as well when you're scouting this, like what's in this kit and how you can potentially rig this, you can be walking around even in the middle of the day, like, oh, that's metal, and I could take just the magnet with me and test, or you just take the kit with you, and you can quickly, you know, that's the benefit in your scenario. If you do get this, then you've got like you don't need to imagine it with, you can like play in the daytime, play when you're scouting. You don't need to kind of like have that prior knowledge. You can kind of build it as you go, which is great, because I suppose this is a learning experience too. Absolutely. But it's a good challenge, you know, and it's not, as we're talking here, it's not creatively void. Like it's possible to work quickly with this, have some ideas, and be creative still, and not, you know, not need to kind of lament the fact that you don't have a big lighting crew, big lighting setups and whatever. Like you can embrace it, especially with your camera being, you know, you'll choose something that's sensitive to light and good in low light, and you know. Should we go on to the next scene?
Yeah, absolutely. So so the next scene I've got,
getting hoarse,
is actually a night interior, and it's quite a key scene in the film. So it happens right before this, like, you know, about probably 3 or 4 scenes before the scene we just did, the exterior bar. And that's a kitchen scene between the main character Orso and his sister, the one that manipulates him into taking revenge. At this stage in the story, they're not. She's trying to be subtle about what she wants, and she is essentially trying to sort of like reconnect with her brother and find some reasons to be, you know, for them to just have an emotional link, in order to, you know, she's kind of luring him into making him feel comfortable so that she can, you know, reach the subject of it's time to get revenge. So this scene escalates quite quickly. It's the first time that they have like a moment with each other. Bearing in mind they haven't seen each other for about 10 years. And so, you know, she went and picked him up at the airport. They've had a couple of encounters that made him understand that everyone is kind of expecting him to do something about his father's death. But they haven't spoken about it in, you know, in sort of like explicit terms yet. And so we have this kitchen scene. They are in their house, which is quite old, typical Corsican house, where you'll have like a modern room like this one, the kitchen. But then at the back here, you know, I imagine like a big living room, which is modeled on my house. Big Corsican living room, very old school, like, you know, dark lights, quite red, you know, like sort of a darker feel to it. But they are in the kitchen, and they're having that moment. And I was imagining you know, this is obviously, so you have a table here, you have 2 chairs. This is the kitchen counter, and at first Columba is doing something at the kitchen counter, and then she comes in and they have this conversation, which is quite a long, you know, it's quite a long scene. It's about 4 pages. Again, it sort of quickly escalates, and it mounts in intensity. So my lighting strategy was to probably rig a soft box, like a soft light here, that would be a sort of, you know, essentially would act like a Chinese lantern, I guess, you know, and that I could use on both shots. And then I realized, well, I've got a million different things. The good thing about my setup and this location is I've got quite a lot of depth. So like when I'm on these angles looking at Orso, I've got the depth behind him of being able to look into that living room where there's even windows here that I haven't drawn, but like, essentially, I've got a lot of depth where I'm going to be able to add, you know, I'm going to have practicals, I'm going to be able to add a lot of different lights. And then I've got these 2 cameras on Columba, where I've got a window outside. Sorry, I've got 2 windows, and then I can rig some stuff outside because they're on the ground floor. So I can add a lot of things, but I also have so many elements in that kitchen that I can sort of play upon. You know, I've got a kitchen, I've got kitchen lights here, like sort of worktop lights. And I obviously thought that the Dash would be a good tool to have at that point to sort of quickly rig stuff up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like the under the counter lighting, this would be great for that. I mean, we especially like you said about before, putting it in a line. You know, you can easily modify this if it's too big as well. Like, you know, if you wanted to create something a bit more strip light, you could easily just like cover half of it, you know? Like there's, you know, you could pre-cut little bits of black so that you can trap that in almost like the gel, you know? So if you wanted to create like strip light, you could do that, you know, and sort of add that to it too. You know, there's playing around beforehand to create those sort of effects. When we were shooting Trendy, we had to very quickly figure out a way to hide lights under a kitchen counter, and this could have been handy in that scenario. You know,
I remember that day.
Yeah, it's like it's not necessarily the first tool I would reach for that situation, but in your circumstances, again, if you have this, then it's so versatile that you've just got to like imagine in how to do it. I think a lot of the time with the film industry, there's like that light does that in my experience, and I like to look at lights as being like what can I get from that, you know, especially if you own anything, you want to make the most of what you can. And I think in this situation you could use it for that. You know, you're saying as well about possibly having a Chinese lantern lighting the 2 characters on the table. Now we did say as well this is a night scene, so you know, it's a sort of classic, a good classic setup, you know, having a Chinese lantern or 2 and then sort of wrapping it with Bolton or black wrap, or, you know, to kind of take some of the spill off the walls. I mean, one thing you could do with this, which may be a little bit more advanced, but I literally just thought of it off the top of my head. You could find a way to rig, if you did have the quad kit, you could find a way to rig 4 of them so that they're like 2 are facing up and down and 2 are facing that way. You know, and if you put your domes on as well, like you know, you could have it inside a Chinese lantern, right? You know, not in your situation, it might be a little bit, you know, so it'd be something that'd be maybe a pain, but if you pre-rigged it or figured out a way to do that before, so that it could almost snap on instantly, and then you just put your China ball over, it wouldn't take that much time. It's again like figuring out these ways before, and then you know, I imagine just off the top of my head creating some sort of like a metal frame or a metal box in the middle that you rig some, you know, you somehow rig to, and you could even just like magnet these to the metal box, you know, and you create that sort of effect, and then make sure you've got that Chinese lantern that fits around it. Again, it's something you'd build in beforehand, but it's probably easier than it would seem to do that. And that's one option. You could you know, you could also you know, in a more simple way, take the quad kit or a couple of these and belly diffusion underneath it, so that you create like a sort of half, almost like the dot. I mean, you could use the dot, but you could use the dot, but I just noticed your girlfriend wandering by in the background. You could use the dot, but it wouldn't, it might not be big enough for two people, you know? So you'd want to create a large spherical source, and
Yeah.
there are ways
And
to add this in and still have that versatility of, especially with color temperature, if you wanted to like play around with it being warmer or a little cooler.
Exactly. What's super interesting here is like, obviously, depending on how many of these dashes I have. So again, being kind of open to any possibilities. If I was to have two quad kits,
yeah,
I could essentially use one quad kit as my main light source here of something that I would rig in a certain way, and then use the other quad kit to add bits of lights in the shot reverse shot in different places and model with them, which is great, because you know, suddenly it's like,
I mean, and that's the thing as well, man. Like, you know, you're getting like it was saying about the quality of the thing too. Like, you know that if you had that situation, you know that like the quality of the light across your entire set, from like the key lights to all the practicals and the little accents and everything you've got going on, are all like in the same world of like very high-end filmmaking, you know, like, so because they're using this same technology and the bigger lights on big sets, you know. So the main thing is just like narrowing down the amount of time it takes to rig this stuff, and it's practice beforehand, you know. With the space in the background all the way through, when you're shooting those two kites at the table, you've got the option to splash some light on walls, push the practicals in the background, you know. The possibilities are sort of endless with that. And again, really quick, again, like we said before, there are a million different ways you can do these things, but like, if you're choosing this kit, how can you use it in different ways? I mean, it's like endless almost. And we just picked two night scenes here, and you know, the price of this, I've bought LED panels before that have like, that are just on and dimmer, you know, and I don't know exactly what color temperature I'm getting. I don't know I've got that same like reliability.
I think that's a super important point for me, because again, like I've said before, it's something that gives you the ability to look a bit more expensive than you are, if that makes sense. Like, all things considered, because the Dash has a price, but at the same time, it's an investment that's worth making, because it gives you that quality of light that makes stuff feel cinematic. You know, often people are almost disqualified or looked down upon because the quality of the light is just not, you know, it just doesn't quite deliver on what you want, whether it's skin tones or just color matching, which are so important in film, you know, and that we always kind of assume are the basis of one of the many bases of a cinematic look. And I feel like for me, that's an aspect of it that's super exciting, because it's affordable, you know, it's an affordable way to, and it limits you, as you said, in other ways because of the size of the light, etc. But it still gives you that thing that really is fitted to my format.
Like you say, you'll have other light sources on set. It's not your every single light, but there are many ways in which to use this. And we've just like probably just covered like a small percentage of ideas for that. There's people thinking up like ideas constantly of how to use this light. It's something very new and exciting. I mean, it's not, neither of us are getting paid to talk about this. It's like, just kind of like genuinely, we want to, you know, we want to kind of be using tools that are this good within this price range. And yeah, I mean, it brings, like, for a filmmaker who is like a corporate filmmaker or a one-man band in any situation, not necessarily shooting drama, gives them an opportunity to like access some of this technology and it be within the normal budget that sort of filmmaker would spend on gear. So yeah, I mean, like, it's probably worth wrapping up now, but I just wonder if you had any other questions about anything.
I mean, besides, when is it out? Not much.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think it's out in the next month. Like, it's so it won't be long, and I believe the quad kit's coming around the same time. So you like the light, I'm guessing?
Oh, for sure. I mean, definitely, like, it's definitely the sort of tool that I'm looking for, and it would address a lot of my needs. So again, when is it out?
Yeah, well, hopefully, be cool for you to like get your hands on one and have a test of it and stuff. Like, And yeah, I mean, like for anyone who's watching, you know, if feel free to get in touch with me on Instagram. My handle's at RW Preisner. If you want to discuss the dash further, although I've covered quite a lot here with Louis. And also, I don't know if you want to enter this, man, but you can win a dash online at dash.rosco.com/#sign up.
You'll send me that, right?
Yeah, I'll send it you in the chat.
Awesome. Well, yeah, man, it's so nice to get to discover that light. Super helpful. And yeah, hit me up with that link because
yeah, cheers for chatting with me as well. I'm looking forward to seeing how your film works out.
Pleasure, man. Well, yeah, and I'll be harassing you with questions. I'll continue to do that.
All right, man. Take care.
Yeah, have a good one.